Converted man here. Well, a big giant welcome to my plus 200 some odd subscribers that I've gained thanks to my special look at Jordan Peterson interview. And that video was pretty silly, but it got a lot of attention and a lot of views, and a lot of you subscribed to me because of it. So I just wanted to say welcome, and I hope you check out my older stuff, the things that I have around. I have lots of different playlists that hopefully will make looking through certain things easier. My intent, my aim of my channel has been informal logic and critical thinking and critical analysis, and trying to talk about those things by using apologetic theistic arguments as kind of a launching point and pointing out the logical fallacies that are often made in these different various arguments. But sometimes I'll just do silly videos. Sometimes I'll talk about social issues, but mainly I'll talk about the supernatural beliefs that people have and the logic of their arguments or lack thereof. I'm a skeptic, and because I'm a skeptic, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in God or the supernatural or paranormal or any of these things that can't be demonstrably demonstrated to be true. I think that these things exist in the human brain, and that's it. But if you have a religious belief, that's fine. I'd like to know why, and I'd like to talk to you about that. And that's basically it as far as what I'm about somewhat and what I do here. And I wanted to talk specifically in this video. I'm going to talk about Jordan Peterson and the views that he has on God, and to kind of try to, well, I don't want to read his mind, because you can't read a person's mind, so you don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what they believe, and all I can go on is what he has said and kind of try to extrapolate from that. So I've listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson's Bible lecture series, and the one interview he had where somebody asked him if he believed in Jesus or if he believed in the resurrection specifically, and he didn't give an exact answer to that. But the answer he gave was what got me to thinking that the sort of God that I think that Jordan Peterson is talking about is a very different God than classical Christianity has put forth in the past. And what I mean by that is, when asked about if he believes in the resurrection, he said, well, I don't know what a human's body limits are. So, I don't know what the human body can or can't do. So basically that's kind of answering that it might have been possible for somebody to recover from a serious injury like the crucifixion, which is, well, so serious that you're dead. Could the human body on its own recover from that? Maybe, given the right sort of circumstances, or if the body had the right sort of genes or the right combinations of chemicals in it. It's hypothetically possible, even though it's extraordinarily unlikely. But that's a mundane explanation of something that should be supernatural. There's no real reason, no real need to look for a human answer to the resurrection if you believe in a supernatural God. God raised Jesus from the dead supernaturally. So there isn't a mundane explanation. It's just God willed it and it happened. God wanted it to happen, so it did happen. That's the typical supernatural explanation for this. But instead of doing that, he says, well, maybe, we can do that as humans. I don't know. It's possible. Who knows? And in the biblical lecture series, he has talked about how you can have really weird experiences, via drugs and hallucinogenics and things like this, and then goes on to talk about, different experiences of God. Well, again, why introduce the notion of a natural phenomenon like narcotics as a thing that can trigger these experiences, unless you're trying to find a natural explanation for the biblical stories? So they had this experience of God, but maybe they were high. and that's and that's what made them think that they saw God. So that's kind of odd, because that means that you're not talking about a supernatural being anymore. You're not talking about anything other than a mundane thing. And then even in general, when Jordan has spoken about God, he has said that it's sort of this social get together of the highest ideal that people have come up with and put out there. And so it's the kind of group consensus and group will of what the highest possible thing is. And that you aim for that. You aim for the best possible, highest possible thing. Well, that's all constructed within the brain. That's all humans getting together and deciding what the best possible thing is, and then just labeling it as God. But then adding another label of supernatural, and then adding another label that it actually exists, rather than it just being as something that they made up. Maybe it's more compelling to try to believe that it's really real, rather than say it's real in the same sense that numbers or letters are real. That it's real that we made it up, but it's so we have to admit that it's not really real. It's just kind of real. And so, you look at, say, the money that in America is "In God We Trust," and we put that there to try to fight communism back in the day, because we're going to have this ideal that's above and beyond anything mundane as our thing that we trust in. You don't trust in the state. You don't trust in one person. You don't trust the government. You trust this perfect idea that's beyond and above everything else. And whatever that is what you trusted. And so you're not held down or held back by the government or the president or whatever. You're bound towards this overarching agreement that humanity has come up with of a deity. And for America, it's kind of hard to make an argument that it's anything other than Christian, because that's pretty pervasive in the culture. But now, of course, there's other religions in America, and there has been for a while, and now it's they're still in the majority. Christians are still the majority, but that's closing off really quickly. So what are you going to have next? Will it be a new religion that comes in? Who knows? But I think that I've said in defense of Jordan at one point, I said, I don't think he's an apologist, because he's not really arguing for the sort of Christian God that the apologist has argued for. He's arguing for a very different sort of God. And technically speaking, he is an apologist, but only technically. So I'm basically right. but I'm also wrong. Darn it. But if we're to have a God concept, and it seems to me that people's brains are different because of evolution, and some people might be born with a God concept already kind of like not programmed in, but like that the brain has to adopt it at some point. So the moment it's introduced, like the brain says, yes, that's true. I'm going to grab on and hold on to that forever. And other people's brains might be wired in a way that prevents them from ever grasping onto a God concept. And so, even if they hear any version of any kind of God concept, they'll reject it because that's how their brain is. And still, other people might be somewhere in between where their brain allows them to grab onto it or let it go, or and grab onto it again if they want, or let it go again if they want. So, I think that it is our nature to have uh, God concepts, at least for certain people it is, and for others it isn't. And maybe it's the majority of people that happen to have this nature built into them, if you will. And you could believe that that's built into you by God, or you can believe that it's just a process of evolution that led to that. And I think that the naturalistic argument is an easier one to make because there's proof of it. There, that we know that we have evolved these complicated brains, and we know that different brains work in different ways, and we know that chemicals can cause these God experiences. So why think it's anything more than just doing what the body does, doing what comes naturally to us? Well, for the believer, they've been told this probably from a young age, not always, but depends. When I mean, for speaking for myself only, I grew up in Christianity, so I believed it because it was there. I mean, why wouldn't I? And I made it my own as a teenager, and then made it my own again as an adult. But believing that it was true, I never bothered to look into it to find out if it was true. And once I did that and looked at the history and the archaeology and all of that stuff, I found that there was nothing to support these claims. In fact, there was many things to suggest that these claims were manufactured, and there was a lot of cheating going on with fake archaeology, and people being rather shady about their dealings. And so I thought, if you have the truth, you don't have to make up a lie. So you had these people make up. There was this one well that they discovered, but they needed coins to date it. The first archaeology team came by. It's just a well. They didn't find anything. The next team comes in. They happen to be a Christian team that's also funded by a Christian organization. And lo and behold, they find these coins in the bottom of the well that dates the well to the right time that they needed to be dated to declare that it's, this part of this town that's found in the Bible. And then you could say, well, that's kind of fishy already. But then it's even more fishy because they wouldn't let anyone else see the coins. They wouldn't let the coins be examined closely by other archaeologists because of reasons. And it's like, yeah, right. You come on, you faked it. You made it up. Come on, because you want your findings scrutinized by their scientists when you're a legitimate scientist. Only a charlatan won't allow themselves to be tested. But it doesn't necessarily matter if it's all made up because people can believe that it's true, and that can produce all sorts of positive feelings. But I would say that I think it's more important that we um, go with what's true, what can be known. Now, of course, Jordan Peterson has his own view of what truth is, which seems more about like what's useful is true. Like, so it's really useful. Religion's really useful to maintain order, for example, or to establish communities. So therefore, it's true. Well, I get what you're saying, but I don't like that version of true. I'd rather true mean is real. So 1 + 1 is 2. That is true, and it doesn't matter if I don't like it or if I don't believe in it or what. It doesn't matter. It's still true. So, it is true that we're mortal, whether I like that or not, whether I believe that there's something more after it or not. It doesn't change the fact at hand. So that would be one issue that I have with that particular idea. Okay, now I'm going to take a moment here to try to find this video so I can look at the chat. There we go. It wasn't showing up for me. Very annoying. See if anyone is here. Nobody is chatting yet. That's right, Zod. And Rand says hi. And Paul says hi. And that's all I've got. Okay. That's all right. But at any rate, so what I'm getting at here is that let's say that we have to have a religion, that we have to have not necessarily religion, but that we have to have God, a God belief, that we can't get rid of this because humans' brains won't allow for it, if you will. That there's always going to be that if we don't have something already established, that somebody will make something up, and the thing that they make up might be far worse than the thing that's already been established. So, what would be the best sort of God to then construct and pretend like it's real so that people gravitate towards that God? Well, I don't think it would be the Christian one necessarily, but it'd be a far better God than all the gods I think that we have. Of course, you'd have to be willing to lie to people at least at first until people started believing it, and then from there you let the control go and they kind of run it on their own. And there's been experiments done where like they'll have a whole bunch of people look at lines that are different sizes, and 4 out of the 5 people are actors and the fifth one isn't an actor, and they'll all say the wrong answer, and so the person eventually goes along with it. And so all you have to do is then get in another non-actor, and they'll hear the non-actor, making the same wrong answer. And eventually, if you can get rid of all the actors and have in all people that weren't in on it from the start, saying the wrong answers all the time. That's basically what I think religion is, in a sense, is the first person goes in and knows it's all made up, or maybe they don't know that it's all made up, but they suspect that it is, and then you just get enough people to go along with it and it takes over from there. No rap music, please. No problem. No rap will be involved in this presentation. So the construct of God as the greatest good. But why do we need to call it God? Why can't we just say, in good we trust, or in the greatest good we trust, rather than God? Why use the label? And again, it might be because some people's brains are wired to need this thing. Other people's aren't. But if you're going to go with the majority of people, and it seems the majority of people have a God belief, then the best sort of belief to give them would be the one that closest matches with reality, which wouldn't which wouldn't be, the fundamentalist version, because you have to deny evolution, you have to deny the age of the Earth, or you have to even think that the Earth is flat or something, nonsensical to believe in that version. So it wouldn't be that one, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the other one either, because you still have to believe in some really odd things to believe in the current version of God that Christians present. Although other versions of God are just as difficult to comprehend or get your head around. So there would be they'd have to sit down and really hammer it out of what would be the best God that we could invent, so that, people would say, "Oh yeah, okay, I have to believe in God anyways, so here's this God that we made up that totally agrees with science and doubting and skepticism and logic." But then you would still have to have some exceptions built into the system that doesn't allow you to question the system, because otherwise the system fails and it doesn't propagate itself. It doesn't become a meme. so so it has to be self-contradictory somewhere, or it doesn't really work. So that's kind of a thing. So I think that when I think about Jordan Peterson and God, that's what I think that he's arguing for is not an well, I mean, it's hard to say what he's arguing for, but what I think he talks about God, he talks about this greatest good that you aim at. He talks about the greatest these very mundane things, that, again, going back to the Jesus thing, he's like, "Well, I don't know what the human body can do." Well, why does it matter what the human body can do? You have a supernatural agent that can just will a body to life. So why are you concerned with what a human body can do? You're looking for a mundane explanation. I remember a while ago they had tried to find a way to explain how the Red River, or the Red River, the Dead Sea River, could part. And there was this like one goal, this one area where wind, if it blew just right at the right time, and the water was really low, that it would actually spread the water in half, and you could walk right across the ground. Well, that's an interesting mundane explanation, but an even easier one is that the story is completely fabricated from whole cloth. But either way, it's a mundane explanation. So now we have that possible explanation, and say, well, maybe just a really strong wind came at just the right time, and the people later thought it was a miracle. Later, the story got exaggerated to bigger and bigger amounts, but you don't have the truth anymore. The truth is left behind in that endeavor. Whatever the truth was, whether it happened as an event or didn't. But at least we're giving a natural, mundane explanation to this and saying, okay, if you're going to believe in the Bible, why not believe in it in this way? Believe that that event happened, but that it was completely mundane. Would that be better? I don't know. Because you still have to believe in stuff, because you can't prove any of it. You can't verify it. You'd be very hard pressed to run any tests on it, but at least it's mundane. But is it any better? It's a difficult question to answer. So I think that really, for Jordan Peterson and God, I think that, I don't know if there's any really more to add. I thought that this would actually be really kind of a deep topic to explore. The afterlife. No, there is a little bit more. The afterlife, because I was listening to him talk to Sherman, the guy that runs Skeptical magazine. Can't Can't think of his name right now. But he was saying that, about this experience that you can have. Like if you're at a concert and, if enough people around you are experiencing the same thing that you are, although how you would know that, who knows, that you can have this thing that sort of transcends, this transcendent sort of experience. Well, it might feel that way, I guess. There is a magic, quote unquote, to being around other people who are all doing the same thing that you're doing, singing or dancing or whatever. And you're all participating in this joint effort. There is something to that. It's very tribal. It's very primal. It makes you feel things. Michael Shermer. Thank you. Thank you, Rand. I can't pronounce your last name. Huso. That's what I'm going to say. But anyways, so he was saying, well, I wonder if you could have such a big experience of this transcendent experience that time and space would like lose all meaning. So be from your perspective, it would be an infinite experience. And I was like, why is he pondering this? And I thought maybe he's trying to come up with a mundane explanation for heaven. So we know that when the brain is very near death, that it dumps all these chemicals into the body. It just releases like chemicals like crazy. Maybe Jordan thinks that in that moment, from your perspective, your consciousness, whatever's left of it, suddenly experiences an infinite time, even though, of course, for everybody else, it's not infinite, but to you, it's infinite. And so in that moment, from your perspective, you are experiencing all this good feeling forever. And that's what heaven is. That's an interesting idea, if that is what he was trying to get to. I'm, of course, extrapolating an awful lot from a couple of sentences that he said, but I think that there could be a very mundane explanation of a afterlife, a heaven, if you will, that you, upon your brain experiencing its own demise, will release all these chemicals, and of course that will make you feel all sorts of things. And since all of your body has already shut down, then from your point of view, what you see won't be with your eyes, it will be with your inner eye, your imagination. So people that have been near death have reported seeing all sorts of crazy things. So if my brain is telling me that I'm having experience X, whatever that experience is, that I'm seeing everybody I love, that I'm reliving my life again or whatever, and if that from my perspective is going on and never ending, then my reality becomes that. Even though in actual reality, as far as everyone else is concerned, I'm long dead and I don't exist anymore. But from my perspective, I never stopped existing. Maybe that's what he's trying to think about. Maybe that's a possibility of what happens in the brain near death. I don't know, because I don't know all the science or anything like that. But who knows? But it's all mundane. It's still a mundane explanation. So why believe it's anything else? So you can't go to a heaven if there's no heaven to go to. But maybe it's something that your brain makes up this experience for you, and you experience it for what seems to be an awful long time. Obviously, it doesn't last forever, but if it felt like it, Well, then what? What do we make of that? And then you go back to hard solipsism. Reality is what I experience daily. If my brain starts producing a new reality and I cannot escape from that new reality, then that's the reality that I'm in. So if I'm experiencing this joyous sensation for what seems like forever, then that's the reality that I'm in, even if I'm not really in that reality. Oh, bleep. Now what? But it's still natural that my chemicals in my brain are made that happen. So we didn't need anything supernatural to explain it. We didn't need anything non-mundane to uh, resolve what it would be to continue to exist after you don't exist, which is kind of like, huh? You can't have it both ways. Um, so it might be we're gonna have this really neat experience right as we expire. Of course, I'd rather that I have a long, long time before I ever get to find out. But then maybe we could just, inject ourselves with the right thing and experience that now if we wanted to. Why wait? But other people, and this was what Michael Shermer was talking about, developing a afterlife in the real world, like will upload all the things that your mind knows into a computer. Well, that's a copy. That's not me. The law of identity holds. I'm me. That's not me. So it it's good that there will still be a version of me, but it will not be me. Um, Even if you could take your brain and put it inside a machine and keep your brain alive, uh, they were saying, that you were more than just your brain. You need all the hormones and things that your body produces. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So, well, but maybe we can get the machine to produce the hormones that your body would have produced anyways, so that you can stay alive. Although, how would we keep the brain alive? I don't know. There's still problems with that. But it could only last for so long unless we figure out a way to stop entropy. uh, but eventually, would you get bored of it? And people, of course, have gone on the philosophy of existing forever. That you have to assume a lot of things. You have to assume that you have perfect memory because, well, why would you want to exist for all time if you're going to have not perfect memory and you're going to have the same sort of problems that you'd have right now. So you have to kind of imagine a scenario where we've gotten rid of all the pain and suffering part of life. So again, I guess we're putting your brain inside of some machine that's keeping you alive and in some sort of artificial environment where you won't be hurt or whatever. And we can improve your memory so that it's perfect and we can give you any experience that you want. Well, eventually you might take 1 trillion years or something, but you would run out of experiences. And eventually you would be bored. And I think we would have to build in a red button to hit that allowed you to end the simulation, allow you to end your existence when you got bored of it. Maybe you have to enter in a few passwords before it does it. It's not just as easy as pushing a button because you might accidentally lean on it. You've hit the end existence button. Oh, no, 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 no. Hello, Christina Blackfeather. Nothing's forever. Get over it. That's true, but scientists are looking for a way to make it that you know that that we would exist or could exist for a long time. Like some of them think that you would live to 1,000 years old. Wow, that's a long time. you know, just get me to 100 or 200. I mean, my word. But and this is what Michael Shermer was talking about in his latest book is heaven on earth. And so he's talking about a mundane scientific heaven, and Jordan is pontificating on a more spiritual seeming heaven, but he too is making it mundane. And I wonder if that's because he is a person of science. Psychology is a science. And so he can't just leave that behind so easily and be one of these people that says, there is a heaven, you can go there, there's a God, instead of just heaven is this chemical reaction, God is essentially a social construct. Why can't we be okay with that, though? Now, of course, skeptics and atheists, we are okay with this, but the religious people, they can't be. Well, I think the answer is their brains won't let them be okay with it. Yeah. Well, you know, so those are my thoughts on this. I guess that is all of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything more to add, but I think that's it. So I'm gonna close out for now. Hopefully you enjoyed what I had. Obviously, I think you could go deeper into it, but it would require getting all the different clips from Peterson where he's talked about God and putting them all together and really trying to analyze it. And there's a lot of work for something that I think I can just kind of cover off the cuff here. But mostly this was kind of to introduce my channel to all the new subscribers I have and kind of give them a feel of like the sort of thing that I do. So thanks for listening. And if we don't have empirical evidence or a repeatable test or a valid and sound argument, we should be skeptical of the conclusions. And as always, lobsters exist. Converted lobster. All right. Goodbye, everybody.